saw what contributed and led to the rift, and I totally side with Katie. And welcome back to my channel. My name is Kathleen if you are new here, and we love to talk about all things bookish on this side of the YouTubes. And today is no different, as I am going to be starting a reading blog where I am reading different books that explore the fascinating complexity of female friendships. And we will be reading my first ever Kristin Hannah, which is Firefly Lane, where we are exploring the friendships of Tully and Kate as they navigate the turbulent teen years into early college years and onward in their friendship and the cataclysmic event that happens that tears them apart, and if they will be able to repair their friendship before it is too late. The next book that we'll be reading is Bad Friend: How Women Revolutionized Modern Friendship by Tiffany Smith. This is a nonfiction book that is exploring the dynamic of friendships and exploring this idea of bad friendships and how the typical friendship has changed throughout the years. And lastly, we will be reading We Are Not Like Them by Kristin Pride and Joe Piazza. And this story explores how two friends, Riley and Jen, are navigating the kind of racial lines that are kind of drawn up and that are placing them on opposite sides of their friendship due to Jen's husband being a cop, and he has shot a black unarmed young teenage boy, and they're navigating not just the lines that are drawn in their friendship, but also the cultural reckoning that seems to be raining down on both of them respectively. So these are the books that we're going to be reading and diving into as we are talking and discussing and exploring female friendship. So if that seems like what you're into, just keep watching and let's chit chat. Hello, beautiful friends. This is kind of my first update or kind of discussion or me sharing my thoughts about Firefly Lane by Kristin Hannah. Currently, I'm sitting at about 25% of the way in this book. And yeah, true to what I was expecting, I really selected this book because I felt like was going to go into just the different layers and nuances of female friendship, specifically when you become friends as from children or childhood, or in their case, I think they were like in their preteens or teens kind of, and how that progresses forward throughout time into adulthood and the different dynamics and layers that come with that, and how the friendship changes and evolves, and also exploring what makes these friendships kind of work and what gives them their staying power. And this is very fascinating because we see these two girls, Tully and Kate, and they're both being pitched as polar opposites of each other, with Tully coming from a more broken home and having a lot of instability and a poor relationship with her birth mother, and Kate coming from a home that's not broken. She has her entire family. She has the support of her mom, who is doing all she can to really be there for Kate during her kind of preteen teen years, and keeping those lines of communication up so that she can be a positive influence to kind of help her daughter navigate the, to most of the times that you're bound to have when you are a teen and you're adjusting and you're growing into yourself. But she, as normal teenagers do, is kind of rebelling against that and is wanting to kind of set apart her own identity away from that of her parents, and wants to rebel and explore and see what the world really has to offer for her. And we see these two come together, and they're both attracted to each other for the things that they lack, or the things that the other has that they wish that they wanted. So Kate is very attracted to Tully because she is popular, she has a lot of friends, and that's something that Kate wants. She also gets to do whatever she wants to do, and she's very free-spirited and just kind of living in the moment and being just a wild, rambunctious teenager, sort of, kind of. And Tully is very attracted to Kate because she has that stability. She has a family that cares for her. She has a mom that really is invested in her life and wants to take care of her, who loves her and wants to see her flourish and do well. on into adulthood. And we see them coming together and becoming best friends throughout things that kind of happen that you would normally tear these young women apart. They kind of don't, and they really do cling to their friendship. And I find that to be so fascinating. And I also find it to be interesting because I think that a lot of times in female friendships, especially when we are friends when we're young, we typically start friendships because of one or two things. Either it's because we're both in similar situations and a friendship kind of births from that, or it's because, I don't know how to say this, but it's kind of like there's a low level jealousy. Like you envy the other person and you want to be around them and in their orbit because you want to be them in essence, and you want to kind of be like them. So you kind of form a friendship based on each of you wanting to be like the other one. And that's what I'm seeing with Tully and Kate. And I feel like though, I'm really gonna be interested to see how their friendship unfolds over time into the future. And we do know that they have a falling out where they don't speak. That was kind of briefly mentioned in the synopsis and kind of briefly explored in the first chapter of this novel. And I'm just curious as to what it could possibly be. And me just being me, I'm kind of trying to find the little clues that show the cracks and the kinks in the friendship. And I think one of the things that is a crack or a kink in the friendship is probably the fact that they do kind of each envy the other, and that is going to be something that may become an issue further down the line. And also we see within their friendship that, which is very common with young women, is we build our identities around each other. So we kind of feel like we can't do things, or we can't be our own self, or we can't have our own individual kind of pursuits and goals without the clique, without the confines of the friendship, because that means that you don't like that person, that you don't want to be with that person. And it also sometimes feels like it threatens the solidity and the foundation of the friendship if you're not both in line and doing what the other is doing, or you have a similar lifestyle, or you have similar goals as the other friend. Are you truly friends, and do you really know each other? And we see that beginning to happen now, where we see Kate wanting to still remain friends with Tully, but also wanting to assert her independence and really explore her identity and not have it be wrapped up in Tully, and how there's so much of Tully that has kind of permeated into her life. From she's very present within her family due to her mom kind of taking pity on her, being from a broken home and not having that relationship with her mother, and kind of taking her under her wing. And we see that Kate kind of feels overshadowed and overpowered in the friendship, where her needs aren't necessarily getting met because Tully doesn't like really respect her as Kate the individual, but sees her more as an extension of herself, and doesn't really take the time to think about what Kate wants aside from what Tully wants for Kate, or what Tully believes that Kate should want and should pursue, because her identity is also wrapped up in Kate in this unhealthy way, where she feels she just can't go and be her own independent person without Kate being in her shadow. And we're starting to see how that is slowly impacting the friendship, primarily on Kate's side, where we can see this, what I would say, or I predict to be this possible slow thread of resentment that's going to begin to shift and build. And you can see that in the things that she says about Tully's relationship with her mother, and that she's made a couple of comments about Tully's closeness with her mother. And so we can there's these little things, these little seeds that I can just see, and I'm like, yeah, I can see this being a problem in the future. And also, there was something that Tully's mother said regarding a situation, not Tully's mother, but Kate's mother said regarding a situation, that it really made me think about that and reflect on that. And she was saying, or giving Kate the advice regarding Tully in that particular situation, how sometimes in your friendships, we just kind of have to like be silent. And even when the friend is wrong and they're doing something that we disagree with and they're living their life in a way that we don't necessarily, we know to not be good for them, we have to like let it play out and let them kind of fail forward and just be there for when things fall apart. And I kind of disagree with that. I feel that, and I feel like that's a lot of problems in so many female friendships, is that we feel like because we're friends, you cannot hold the other person accountable to poor behavior, poor decisions, or potentially toxic, unhealthy decisions and situations where they're putting themselves at risk, either in relationships or with their lifestyle choices or what have you. So I feel like I feel like that could apply to like preferential stuff. Like if your friend wants to dress a certain way or pursue a certain fashion aesthetic, yeah, let her have it. You disagree with it or you think it's not flattering, sure, let her figure her own way out in that. But if your friend is putting herself in a dangerous situation, if she is in a potentially toxic, unhealthy, questionable relationship, I think that you should step up and say something and, be that voice of reason in those situations and just kind of not say anything. Because I feel like there are too many times where friends do that and they don't hold their friends accountable for things, or they don't speak up in situations for their friends that later leads to more tumultuous and problematic situations down the line. And if you would just kind of you can mitigate that if you just say something, and that you are truly a friend by not just going along and going with the flow, but saying, hey, I care about you and I see this not being a good thing. I see this not going a good way for you. And I'm going to say something. And yeah, sometimes I don't know. When she said that, that's just kind of like, I was just like, I don't know if I altogether agree with that. And I don't know, maybe it's because of my past history where I've had friends that I've had to just kind of like do a timeout and let them know about certain things or situations where I'm like, this is not good for you. This is not going to end good for you. I've had friends who were in very questionable dating and relationships where I was constantly either helping them and I was trying to like mentor them and kind of help them see that this is not a good relationship. This is not a good person for you. This is a red flag, and run. And in one situation, the friend did not listen to me, and this was very much a red flag guy. He was controlling. He was passing and sharing pornographic material of her to his friends and just making it like a joke. And all of these things are red flags, like obviously, and trying to tell her who she could and couldn't talk to. All of these things are red flags. But for some reason, she just wasn't listening to me, and that friendship, it failed because he told her that she couldn't talk to me, and she decided to side with him. And it is what it is. But I feel like I would feel horrible as a person if I wasn't speaking up on my friend's behalf and letting her know that this is problematic. This is not good. That you can make this choice to be with this person, but you're inviting a whole world of pain for you. And while I don't know what happened in their situation, I don't know what she went through. I do know that they're not together. But I don't know. I just feel like we have some part of responsibility in our friendships to really hold our friends. I don't just want to say hold our friends accountable, but in those situations, be the voice of reason and help them not potentially fall down into a toxic, unhealthy situation that could contribute to domestic abuse, or them being groomed by a much older adult that does not necessarily have their best interests or best intentions for them. So yeah, I don't know. When she said that, it just kind of really made me reflect and think on, is that really the best thing that you can do for your friends when it comes to very serious situations that could potentially lead into problematic circumstances or just blow up in their face later on. But yeah, this is quite interesting, and I'm looking forward to learning more about Tully and Kate's friendship and the things that happen. We are still in the 80s where they're in college right now, in their college years, and exploring life with them, trying to navigate their way into young adulthood. And yeah, so I will hop back in after I get a little bit more ways through, or when something strikes me as interesting that kind of fits in with the theme of female friendships, and particularly talking more about the dynamic of childhood friends into adulthood, I will hop back on and share more of my thoughts. So yeah, there's that.
Lately my thoughts got me distant, darker days filling up darker minds. Stuck in this room that keeps spinning, wondering how you been, where you hide. Late night drinking, wishful thinking, what if you were here? Morning waking, heart still aching, something about the way you make me feel. I don't wanna mess up your night, I don't wanna put up a fight, I don't wanna trouble you, babe, but I gotta say, I don't wanna waste no more time trying to shake the feelings inside. Finally got made up my mind, can't go one more day without you. No, no. Lately there's something that's missing. Empty bed doesn't feel empty hearts. Typical me reminiscing. A memory doesn't heal open scars. Late night drinking, wishful thinking, what if you were here? Morning and waking, heart still aching, something about the way you make me feel. I don't wanna mess up your night, I don't wanna put up a fight, I don't wanna trouble you, babe, but I got to say, I don't wanna waste no more time trying to shake the feelings inside. Finally got made up my mind, can't go one more day without you. Can't go one more day without you. No, no, can't go one more day. Can't go, no, I can't. One more day without you. Can't go, one more day without you. I can't go one more day without you. No, I can't go one more day.
I see something approaching. I see a potential kind of like situation that's kind of potentially cause like a little bit of a rift between Tully and Kate, like right now, when it comes to this whole kind of dynamic that they have with them, with Tully in her mind wanting them both to live out this dream, this fantasy of them becoming the first female anchors and first like female reporters and whatnot, and just making a splash in the journalism field. and Kate being very reluctant and not being or feeling very much like this is what she wants to do, and her kind of like going along with it because Tully is like really hell-bent on it, and her mom is kind of pushing her into being more ambitious and like taking a risk with her career. And I see kind of what's happening. Tully, with her being so adamant and so hell-bent on becoming a journalist, becoming a reporter, becoming an anchor, and like being so obsessed and fixated on journalism and news, and kind of like plowing through people and not taking the time to actually grow and develop her craft as a journalist. In, you know, while she just has all this passion and she gets a lot of people to maybe support her or co-sign with her because of her passion, particularly select people see her passion and it kind of fires them up. In this instance, we're seeing it while they're at this little, while they're working at this low budget kind of journalist news, whatever. How the guy, I do believe it's like, what is his name? Johnny. Yeah, the guy Johnny, he's the boss and he's the head honcho there, and he finds Tully's passion to be inspiring and her ambition to just be like something commendable that he respects and he admires. Whereas the other two that are working, Mutt, who is a cameraman, and Carol, who is the lead reporter, they kind of find her ambition and her passion to be exhausting and overwhelming because she's just like never stops. She is just like a bull in a china shop, and she's just hell-bent on kind of like doing whatever, and just that, you know, those people, the people who are like overly ambitious and who are overly obsessed with being top dog and like accomplishing things, and how in a way it becomes a negative. It's that kind of an issue like right now, where she's kind of alienating and pushing people away from actually wanting to mentor and help her because she's just being exhausting. Whereas, and she's not really caring about them as people. She just sees them as a tool or a stepping stone to get to where she needs to be. And that, in essence, isn't really how you want to treat people. Whereas Kate, due to her not like really being fixated, fascinated, and hell-bent on like making this her career, is more invested in the people. So she actually has a really good relationship with Carol, and like she's knowing what's going on in her life. She's telling her about her upcoming delivery, her giving birth, and starting her family. She has a bit of a relationship with Mutt, like in which each of the people there, whereas Tully kind of doesn't. And I do believe because of her having this relationship with Carol and being more relational and having more of like a bond, Carol is giving her tasks such as editing copy and helping her like doing research, that if Tully wasn't so fixated on getting her big break and was maybe trying to angle and get in that way, she would actually be able to couple her passion for journalism with actually developing the skill of journalism. And I think that that is what Tully's problem is she has the passion, but she lacks the patience to develop the skill. And she thinks that her ambition and her passion, and perhaps even her looks, will get her in the door of being a journalist, and she's not really flexing and developing that skill. And I see that that is going to be a potential problem for these two at this place, because I guarantee you, Kate's approach is going to open more doors than Tully's approach. And I also see that this guy, Johnny, because Kate has a crush on this man, but she's seeing how Johnny admires and looks at Tully, it's going to cause some conflict with that too. There's going to be some conflict with that as well. I see some things about to unfold.
Somewhere along the way, somehow we ended up at a crossroad and we got lost. Somewhere you chose to go left, while I turned the other way, and you got lost. Want you to know, for all I know, even if the road ahead is long and winding, even if the road behind is left you crying, even if the tears come streaming down your face, it's gonna be okay. Take a walk and I join you. Just leave a trace and I follow. Make a wish and I make it come true. For all I know, even if the road ahead is long and winding, even if the road behind us left you crying, even if the tears come streaming down your face, it's gonna be okay. What if you turn around and look at me? Then you'll see my love's for real. Just take a walk and I'll join you. Leave a trace and I follow. Make a wish and I make it come true. Want you to know you'll be okay. For all I know.
This moment that's happening, where Kate is kind of thinking about how she is feeling like the backup person to Kate being the star, and she's kind of like the side character in Kate's story. And I mean, our Kate feels like the side character in Tully's story, and she is the main character, and everyone loves her. She's got all the attention. Johnny is giving her all of this attention. He's looking at her and admiring her, giving her accolades for a job well done on delivering her first piece and kind of like her first big break as a journalist. And, you know, they're looking to celebrate, and I could just see Katie just like shrinking. And when it comes to just female friendships in whole, I, in theory, kind of understand this part of female friendships, especially when you grew up together and you kind of have this codependency where one goes, one follows. But even in those kind of codependent friendships, there's always one person who seems to be the leader and always a person who is a follower. And you're always going to come to that point, especially as you like age and like grow up and start becoming hopefully your own independent person. You're always going to have that moment where that person who's been the follower gets tired of playing second fiddle, gets tired to being the supporting actor to, you know, the lead actress, and begins to look for their own identity and breaking out on their own. And we see Katie reaching this point, and I think that she keeps coming against this rock, this stumbling block. And for some reason, she keeps stumbling over it, but she doesn't like go around it. Like she doesn't like go around it. She just keeps tripping over it and tripping over the same thing over and over again, and kind of refuses to step out on her own. And even in this situation that we're talking about here, where it's going out to get drinks with Johnny and Tully, and she knows that Johnny has a thing for Tully, and she's kind of putting herself in the situation of like feeling like the third wheel, and like she feels this obligation to participate because she knows it will make Tully happy, and not listening to her own needs and what she wants, and, you know, supporting herself. And I think it's so important in female friendships that you have your own identity, and that you stop, and that you have boundaries, and that you learn to not just let another person's needs, another person's dreams and desires overshadow what is good for you emotionally and mentally. And that also, if you're in a friendship where this person is railroading you, and that you're constantly having to do things that make them happy, having to support them, having to play second fiddle to them, maybe this isn't a healthy friendship. Maybe you need to have a conversation and reframe this friendship so that it is beneficial and there is some reciprocity involved, where it's not always about them. Maybe you need to set some boundaries and start asserting yourself and saying, actually, no. Because I see Kate as definitely a people pleaser. She's trying to please her mom. She's trying to please Tully. And she's blaming them for her actions because she is afraid of their disappointment. She's afraid of them like becoming frustrated with her. And I understand it. She's young. She's 21. And as a person who's like a reformed people pleaser, I totally get it. It feels like you have to do these things, and that you have to be this person, and that you have to live out this narrative because of what these other people in your life have put on you. But the quicker you can learn that no, indeed you do not. If you're having a conversation with your mom and telling her, I don't want to do this, I don't want to pursue journalism because this isn't what I want to do. No, I don't have the answer to that yet, but I feel like I should be allowed to pursue that and figure out what I want to do and be happy and figure that out. I shouldn't lock myself into a career path that I hate and I'm miserable, because happiness is a key component to thriving as well. Like, she should be able to assert herself and say like, no, I don't want to do this. She should be able to, and maybe if she can't get her parents to understand, she should at least have her best friend Tully understand and not like railroad her. And if Tully isn't understanding that, then is she really your friend? Because I feel like this friendship isn't really a friendship. It is completely one-sided, where Tully is getting all the support and all that she needs from the friendship, and Kate is getting nothing. Like, they are going in different directions, and Tully is completely oblivious at this point, and is just so focused, hyper fixated, blinders on to like what she needs. And I understand, I'm not trying to say that I think Tully's a bad person, because I understand that there's layers to Tully as well. Like, while she's not doing her job and her due diligence as being a good friend to Kate and supporting her, you know, and she could be doing better. I get that there's some trauma and there's stuff going on with Tully, and that's why she kind of is the way that she is. But come on. Like, Kate needs to put on her big girl pants here and step up and really assert herself and stop being a doormat and stop letting everyone tell her who she is and what she should do with her life and her current situation. Like, she has to take accountability in that arena herself and kind of like stop making it be and stop this narrative of like, well, it's because everyone else isn't letting me do it. Like, no, you just gotta say no. You just have to enforce the boundary. People are not gonna like it that you enforce the boundary, but you just gotta go and enforce the boundary, say what you gotta say, do what you gotta do, stand on business, and move on. Either they accept it, or they come around to it, or they don't. That is on them. Like, you can't, and again, just really analyzing if this friendship is what you need, and maybe y'all just need a break from each other so that Kate can like figure out who she is without being like lassoed in with Tully. You know what I mean? So I'm seeing that, and like I said, it really makes me question whether this is like a good friendship. But I have been questioning this friendship since its inception, because I feel like female friendships that are born out of this kind of rivalry, this kind of sort of semi-rivalry, this kind of I'm a little bit jealous of you and I want to be like you, and that kind of a thing, and there's no common ground. There's always this friction and this back and forth and this tug of war because you guys are kind of like low-key rivals, and there's this competition with each other. And it can either be a healthy thing that like it motivates you to like push forward, or it's a negative thing that kind of causes you to shrink within yourself, and one person is benefiting from it and the other person is suffering. And we see with Kate that she's definitely suffering. So like, I just don't see them as having a really good friendship. I don't see Tully as a good friend to Kate, because there were even some scenes in this beforehand where Tully is talking about she was just annoyed and irritated with Kate because she's dating and she's talking about boys and she's obsessed with boys, but she's not fixated on journalism. But it's like, but girl, like, that's what she wants. Like, if she wants to date and try to figure out like and be with different guys and figure out what she likes, you know what I mean? That's totally fine. And I also understand totally for that, because this is built off of her poor experiences and her forced disastrous experience with the first guy that she's ever tried to date or like or talk to. So she's kind of thinking and framing that as that's going to happen to Kate, and is really overprotective because of Kate because of that. But I mean, you can't put that on Kate. Like, she is a whole complete individual. And she keeps like lassoing Kate in with what she wants to do, and lassoing Kate in with like her identity. And even too, it's kind of hypocritical, because we have Tully, who has a relationship with a man that, you know, Kate disagrees with, but she's in a relationship with this person, and she criticizes Kate for, you know, being so single-minded and being all about dating and all about boys. And it's like, you then turn around and you're dating somebody and you're all about this person, and you were willing to come to blows with Kate because she disagreed and thought that it was improper. Be oh so for real. It's giving hypocritical. It's giving, their friendship is a mess. I personally would be looking for the exit door, and I would really just like phase her out and just be like, look, I need a break, or I need to do my own thing. This is too much for me. So I just find their dynamic to be so flipping interesting, because it's like, are you kidding me? But I don't know. It is what it is, my friends. It is what it is. Hello, friends. I come fresh-faced with a little bit of pimple cream, but with plenty of updates for Firefly Lane. I am 50% of my way into this book. I just finished reading about Kate and Tully and how their friendship changed throughout the 80s. And now we're into the lovely 90s, and we are going to see what this kind of decade of life has in store for their friendship. A lot of the things that I'm beginning to see and notice about their friendship is, like I was saying earlier, how the cracks in which that I was already noticing how it did cause some issues for them in the 80s as they were kind of coming into their own individual identities, with Kate trying to figure out who she was and where she wanted to go in life and what she wanted to do for her career. What were her aspirations and her dreams, as she did feel a little bit kind of like left in the dust because Tully was so fixed and focused on her career being a journalist and focusing on journalism. So she was trying desperately to figure all of these things out because, you know, as I've mentioned earlier, Kate is very codependent. So she builds a lot of her self-esteem, a lot of her worth and her identity based upon what Tully thinks of her, and also based upon what her mother thinks of her, because they have ideas and views about womanhood and about women being able to do it all, and women being able to have the career, be married, and also, you know, have their family and being able to accomplish this. As we saw a lot of a rise in this way of thinking due to the second wave of feminism. So it's totally on track. But we see Kate kind of struggling with that reality and trying to find her place in who she wants to be, because what she's discovering that she really wants is she really wants to be a housewife. She really wants to be a mother. She really wants to start a family. And she doesn't really want to focus on climbing the corporate ladder and trying to be this, you know, modern age career woman. And then you have Tully, who is going through a lot of a transitory period in her life as she's trying to make it and get her break in journalism, because her goal is to be an anchor woman and her goal is to just the upward trajectory towards the networks. And she's just trying to pave her way, and so that she can open the door for her to eventually be in network journalism. And we see her working hard to accomplish that, how she is so fixated on that. Prince, shush. How her fixation on this in a lot of ways impacts. We see also how her fixation on this leads to her making choices and decisions about her romantic relationships, where we see Kate making that transition to where she is trying to date for marriage and to have a family. We see Tully coming to that crossroads in her life and realizing, I don't want to be married. I don't want a family. I want my career in journalism, and her making that distinction and pursuing that path. And we see them kind of splitting off into separate directions when it comes to that, as they both go different ways in terms of family building and career. And this kind of leads to a bit of a natural and normal shift in their friendship, where, you know, they're not as together anymore. It's not them two against the world. It's Kate building a family, building a marriage, and it is Tully building and growing and expanding her career and living as a single woman. And while this changes the dynamic of their friendship, it doesn't necessarily tear them apart. We see them really trying to work at maintaining that close bond. We see Kate reassuring Tully, who does have a lot of abandonment issues, that she's not going anywhere, that just because their friendship dynamic has changed, it doesn't mean essentially that their friendship has changed and that they're not going to be best friends forever. So we see them doing this, but we also see how the stress of motherhood and marriage does take its toll on Kate. And she has a lot of these questions about being a good enough mom, being a good wife. She's going through a lot of those natural things that women go through when they are in motherhood. The questions they have, the insecurities they feel, a bit of the body with their self-image and their body image. They're just feeling insecure about those things. And we see that with Kate. And we do see, again, that bit of envy and jealousy kind of start to impact how she views Tully. Of course, she's single. She feels like Tully is, you know, not settled with children. She doesn't have these responsibilities that Kate has, and she's able to continue pursuing and moving upward in her career. And there's a little bit of jealousy for her in that. And that is starting to rear its head again in their dynamic. And we also see at this critical point of their friendship where Tully is beginning to make decisions and choosing her career, in this particular instance, over her friendship. So we are also seeing that dynamic layered into their friendship at this beginning decade of the 90s. We're seeing all these little subtle shifts and changes. And what I think about this is bravo for them for making it this far in their friendship, because they've made it through a lot of the key transitions and transitory periods in like a woman's life where you usually kind of begin to lose your friends. In your 20s, like when you're in college, around about like your mid 20s later on, as people begin to get coupled up, people begin to get engaged and get married and have kids, you start to lose your friends. You start to kind of disassociate yourself from your single friends, because the friendship dynamic changes, because you are more focused on doing things for marriage. You're more focused on the coupledom and the relationship with you and your husband. You're more focused on building a family. You're just knee deep in that major life milestone of blending your life with another person's life. And they made it through that. They were able to flawlessly navigate and make it through that, even though they lived apart, with Tully in New York City and Kate still in Seattle. They still were able to make this work for their friendship just by checking in, just by really being invested in one another's lives, despite even their feelings of maybe like jealousy or envy of each other. They still were able to prioritize each other for the most part. But now we see them in the 90s, and I'm curious to see how their friendship is going to stand this next decade of life, because they're still going through that transitory period of Kate becoming more embroiled in marriage and family life, Tully, you know, growing more and getting bigger breaks and now working for a network in her career, and how that is going to impact her and her decisions. And I'm very curious and interested to see the changes that's going to happen to their friendship because of this. I still don't really think that they have the best friendship. The more I read this story, the more I really feel like these two people, while they have this bond and this connection, I do question again just if they're really truly the best of friends. I don't know. I really question that. But something else that I've been challenged with as I'm reading this and me questioning their friendship, is there even really like a perfect or ideal friendship? Like, is there even possibly a way as women to build the healthiest, resilient friendship? Like, we are all different people. We are continually evolving and changing. Is it possible to kind of prevent every potential obstacle that one can encounter in their friendship? I don't know. Are Tully and Kate probably trying to just do their best? Probably. That's where I'm at with Firefly Lane. Definitely looking forward to see how everything plays out in this one, and I will let you know more of my thoughts a little bit later. So I forgot how far I am in Firefly Lane. I'm on page 378 and I'm about to start chapter 30. So it's been a minute since I've kind of updated on this, and pretty much what I'm pulling from this book, and as it pertains to female friendship and the dynamics of those friendships, specifically with this friendship. I have said it before and I will say it again. I feel like this is a depiction of an unhealthy friendship. And I don't think that that is Kristin Hannah's intention when exploring this friendship and telling this story about these two friends. I think that she's trying to show and get across how there is a lot of grace and allowance that we have to give other people due to the things that they've gone through and due to their history. And she's also showing, you know, how in these friendships, sometimes there's a lot of ups and downs. As we navigate being friends with people who are different from us and who have different life experiences, different personalities, different way of seeing things and approaching life. And again, how we have to give allowances and grace to our friends in these instances and situations. And she's also showing how two very different people, one person being very much family oriented, being a stay-at-home mom who chose to forego pursuing a career in place of focusing on taking care of her family, what that dynamic looks like, coupled with or contrasted with a woman who is very career driven and career oriented, who doesn't focus on marriage and family, and how her life kind of turns out and how her life is, and how in each of these women, they kind of hold a little bit of envy. They kind of have a little bit of envy and jealousy because each one wants aspects of the other one's life, with Kate wanting the career, the popularity, the notoriety, and as she feels like she is more attractive than her, and she just basically wants those aspects of her life and the way that people gravitate towards her and how she kind of fades into the background, with Tully wanting what Katie has as far as marriage, a family and stability, and like not being alone and being a part of a family unit and craving that that Katie has. And I think it's interesting in that sense of seeing how two different people who come together in their childhood have managed to keep a friendship that is very much on a shaky foundation to begin with. How they were able to keep this friendship together to middle age as they're both in their 40s. But that being said, as I have stated multiple times, and also in relation to me reading Bad Friend by Tiffany Watts Smith and kind of understanding a little bit more the timeline of friendships and why friendships happen the way that, and why friendships kind of like come and go and transition the way that they do, when it comes to just age and life stage and these sorts of things. I would say that this is not a healthy, good friendship, because we see oftentimes, a lot of times, when they have some kind of conflict, it's always Katie who has to bend to Tully, because it's often repeated that Tully is selfish. She only thinks of herself. She's self-centered. She's egotistical. She puts her career before anything else, and to the expense of her friendships and relationships. And now that she's kind of suffering under those consequences of being that person and being selfish, you know, or actually, put a pin in that. What I mean to say is, we see people talk about how Tully is very selfish, self-centered, and how her growing up without a strong family presence, her growing up without a present father, her growing up with a mother who is an addict has impacted her and made her very self-centered, made her very self-absorbed, and how it's always put upon Katie that you have to be the one to give the peace branch when you guys have disagreements. You have to be the one to make allowances and extend grace for her. Even if she's in the wrong, you have to make allowances for her because she doesn't know any better. She's Tully. Of course we know she doesn't know any better. And I am completely burnt out of this narrative because we have continually gone through this cycle of behavior in their friendship where Tully does something that is fucked up and Katie has to find a way to forgive her and to like meet her halfway because Tully's incapable of being accountable and held responsible for the shitty things she does that makes her a shitty friend. And it's always Katie that has to like kowtow to Tully. After reading this for a good bit of time and being on page 378, I'm tired of this narrative where this woman is continually given a pass for being a shitty person. And this to me is not a great, amazing friendship. This is at this point a very unhealthy and toxic friendship that they both need to sit down and evaluate if they need to continue being friends, or what changes need to be made by each of these women to continue going forward in their friendship and not staying at this stagnant place where they keep stumbling over the same rock. Because the solution cannot be that we don't hold Tully accountable for the shitty things that she does. The solution should not be that Katie isn't supported by her family and friends where they have her back in these situations where Tully has crossed boundaries and pushed lines because, oh, it's Tully, oh, she's family, and all these allowances are made for her. At some point, this woman needs to be held accountable for her shit. I understand that she has a traumatic history starting from her childhood and that she has an addict mother, but this woman is purported to be this famous celebrity with all this money in the world. My friend, go to therapy. Go to therapy and do the work on yourself to become a better, well-rounded person, to learn how to be in relationship with other people, whether that is a friend, whether that is a romantic partner, and knowing how to choose romantic partners wisely that will actually, you can have a relationship and grow it and develop it and not just be so impulsive and rash and letting that kind of lead and guide you in your life. Like, and there just needs to be some accountability. And that's what I would love to see here. I would love to see Katie actually like tell her no and tell her why. I would actually want to see someone in Katie's life tell her, this isn't a healthy friendship. I know that you've known each other since childhood, but it's time that you guys really talk about finding a way to connect with each other and to work through the issues that are tearing each other apart and destructive for your friendship, because you're going to continue come across this this boulder, this stone or whatever, this barricade in your friendship and tripping over it and getting caught up in it. And you're not going to be able to move forward. And neither of you, from what I hear with these women's thoughts, are actually happy with the way the friendship is. And these secret like jealousies and resentments, like all of this stuff needs to be excavated and dealt with, because this is primed and ready to implode. While I understand the point is to show that, you know, female friendships have their challenges, and also to kind of encourage and to embrace that different women from different walks of life and with different personalities and characteristics and from different life stages can successfully have a friendship and make it. I do, but I don't think that this is successful. I don't think that this is the bar. I think this is giving to me every reason why you shouldn't pursue a friendship like this that is built on this unhealthy power dynamic where one person is continually pushing past this person's boundaries, pushing past this person, disregarding them, ingratiating themselves on that person, their family, and not really caring about the needs of the other person. And the other person has to be the people pleaser, the doormat, and make allowances for said person in order to make the friendship work. That is not a friendship based off of mutualism or equality or reciprocity. That is like a parasitic friendship where a person has become a tick and they have found a host and they're literally sucking the life out of that person. So that's kind of where I'm at with this. I'm interested to see how things shake up, because currently right now they're kind of at this impasse, interfering with the way that Katie is trying to raise her teenage daughter Mara and the values that she's trying to instill within her. And we have Tully, who is not a mother, who is a very free-spirited person, and who again has not had a positive example of what motherhood looks like and proper parenting looks like, because her mother was an addict and let her get away and do with anything, is having this different idea about how Mara should be raised and what Mara can and can't do. And she's coming with that fun aunt energy, which is all cool. But I think that she's under the impression that because she's the fun person, that she knows how to properly parent and raise a teenage daughter, and is dispensing parental advice and overstepping all kinds of boundaries. Threatening, I don't want to say threaten, but I would say she's diminishing Kate's authority and going and having private discussions with her daughter where Kate isn't involved, and being more of a friend. And she's being more of a friend and parent to Mara, but not being a friend to her best friend, right? So we will see how all of this shakes out. As I said before, we know that they have some kind of falling out, but let's just see how all of this shakes out. I'm rapidly approaching the end of this novel, and things have transpired. I saw what contributed and led to the rift, and I totally side with Katie. I sided with Katie this entire book, that Tully is a selfish, self-centered friend who does not see the forest for the trees, because she looks at everything through the lens of her trauma and can't get past her own ego to see somebody else's perspective. She's just a bull in a china shop, and yeah, she's not able to see things from the other person's perspective. And that is what led to this rift, because she blindsided Katie under the guise of, I'm just trying to help. And it was I don't think that it was an intentional thing. I think that she wasn't being a good friend in that situation. And her mom, Katie's mom, Mrs. M, warned Tully. She said, in this situation, you need to be Katie's best friend and have her back. She paid that no heed, and that's what got her into this situation. And the fact that she never called her back, like she never called her to apologize. She never called to apologize. She had this righteous anger over her own sin. Like, it was just diabolical. So, anyways, that's on that situation. This took a turn that I didn't clock. This took a turn that I didn't see coming. And I was bawling. I was bawling because it just made me reflect on how it's so important to not get lost in the petty trivialities of friendship. And also how it's so important when you have friends who are like this, and you have childhood friends that have this part where they're just very selfish and self-centered and they don't know how to do that, that you check them early on. You tell them about themselves early on, because Katie allowed a lot of this behavior to go on and to continue and to fester, and that she created the monster. She fed into the monster. She always apologized. She always caved in, and she kept saying, Tully's never going to apologize, because you don't let her. You don't let her hurt. You don't let her see the error of her ways. You don't clock her and say you are wrong because of ABC, 1, 2, 3. Nobody does. Katie doesn't. Her family doesn't. No one in Tully's circle checks her on herself. That's 1,000% the problem, is they allow Tully's trauma to take precedent over her actually growing and healing from that and moving on. Prince had things to say too. But that is 1,000% the problem with this. That's what this is teaching me. So I'm gonna try to finish this. I'm taking a little break because that twist, that thing that happened, I didn't see it coming and it took me out. So hello friends. So true to form, I have more missing content. I lost the footage of me filming my final thoughts over Firefly Lane after I finished it. So here we are. So here's my final thoughts over Firefly Lane as it pertains to female friendships. So at the end of the day, after all of this is said and done, everything is done and dusted, I stand by my assessment that this is an unhealthy and toxic friendship that Tully and Katie had. There was no satisfaction when it came to a lot of the issues that contributed to their friendship being the way that it was. We didn't really get any resolution to a lot of the core character flaws that each of these people had as it pertained to their friendship, both Katie and Tully. There was no satisfaction, no resolution when it came to that. There wasn't really any like major character arc for their friendship or for them. I still feel like I finished this book and they were the same people that they were at the beginning of this book, just older. And now it just felt as if they gave each other a pass for how they were. And that's my assessment on this. When it comes to my personal review and my enjoyment of this, even though, don't pay any attention to my dog losing his mind. Even though this was a very thought-provoking read, I will say, and it did satisfy my curiosity about what a dynamic female friendship looks like and how it evolves and changes over time. I did not find this story enjoyable. I did not find this friendship an exemplary friendship. I wasn't really satisfied with how things ended. I felt like for all that we explored in this long ass book, to not get any kind of satisfaction or any kind of character growth or any kind of like arc when it comes to their friendship was disappointing. So for me, I gave it a 2.5. However, I know that Kristin Hannah is beloved by many, and I also know that for many people, for many readers, they will definitely enjoy this book. I can see that this would actually be, for many women, a very typical average friendship, the one that Kate and Tully has. This is probably, it hits and it touches on a lot of the pain points that many women experience and feel in their friendships. Those who have had friendships where they've grown up from being teenagers or children into adulthood, into their later years of life, and they kind of navigated all of those transitory things that usually break a friendship up or break you apart. This is probably going to be the normal kind of like thing that they would experience, and it would be very relatable. It would be something that they can like connect with. Each of these women were created as characters to represent kind of like the different paths that many women take, with Tully being more of the career driven and focused woman and not necessarily pursuing marriage, not pursuing motherhood. So she's representing that archetype of women. And then we have Kate, who is representing the more domesticated homemaker who prioritizes family and getting married and all of that over career. So there are definitely going to be women that can see themselves in these women and feel seen and find them very relatable and find that they represent them fairly well, and a lot of kind of what happens in their friendship and a lot of these events that take place. Also, there is a lot of emotion. Kristin Hannah does a really good job of making a very compelling and emotional story that again hits certain beats and speaks to certain pain points that many women kind of struggle with and deal with. So that she is very much really good, it seems like, from this novel. This is the only novel I've read from her, to appealing to a broad audience because of that. The writing is very accessible, very easy, very straightforward, very readable, and you can easily like get into this story. Yeah, the audiobook, when I was listening to the audiobook, it was also a very nice listening experience. Yeah, so I think that there are many women who will have a good time with this. And so just thinking objectively, I think that this would be a 3, and that there would be a lot of people that could read this book and would enjoy the story and have a great time with it. I see this as a book that maybe friends read together and kind of like connect and talk about and have book dates with as they kind of dive into the story. This would also be a great book for a book club where women gather together and they kind of explore, kind of like what we did here in this video, Kate and Tully's relationship and their lives, and kind of what Kristin Hannah was saying about these things and some of the things that she's bringing up, and a lot of the themes and topics that she's trying to broach when it comes to female friendships and what she was trying to say and her purpose and intent for this. I think that this would be an excellent choice for a book club. So that is how I feel about Firefly Lane by Kristin Hannah, and those are my final thoughts. So I started reading Bad Friend, How Women Revolutionized Modern Friendship by Tiffany Watt-Smith today, and it is definitely a very interesting read. I picked this book because I kind of wanted to learn more about the structure and kind of like the way that female friendships kind of are and why these dynamics are that way. And I do know that Tiffany Watt-Smith is particularly a historian. She does like research and study archives, and this was a work that she wanted to do to basically analyze and learn more about friendships due to some personal things that she went through in her life when it came to her friendships. And so far it has been quite a fascinating read, and it's also kind of highlighted for me and kind of brought light to what's going on even in Firefly Lane. And it was just like kind of what I was mentioning. So as I was reading Bad Friend, she was kind of exploring this idea and this concept in the first kind of 13% that I've read, how throughout history, throughout time, it hasn't always been culturally accepted or accepted by society that female friendships were these great, big, emotional, close things that we kind of have it now. It was mostly thought of that only men were capable of deep, meaningful, intellectual connections of like-minded people, so to speak, and that was something that was reserved for mostly really esteemed intellectual, philosophical men. And it wasn't until times began to change throughout history that we began to kind of see more of women kind of developing these close bonds, or at least we began to see more of it being written about and being talked about, that women were having these close bonds and these close kinships together throughout time, and how primarily through the Victorian era, as young women were going off to boarding schools and they were going to schools off by themselves and spending longer periods of time in school. We saw the evolutions begin to take place there, where these girls were forming these really fast, deep, intense connections, where the girl crush, you could say, was kind of birthed, where these girls were learning how to make sense of their identity and who they wanted to be and who they wanted to kind of grow up to be and how they wanted to be perceived as in social settings and throughout life, by becoming fixated on a girl that they felt had it all, had the persona, had the attitude, just had that thing that made them so special, so unique, and what they aspired to be. So I guess you could say they were more aspirational type of friendships, and that these friendships were fast and intense, with these girls becoming super close and really becoming embedded into each other's lives, where you couldn't tell the difference between the two of them, and how this kind of led to the way that female friendships are now, where we can see that taking place and taking stock in a lot of the friendships that we have, especially when you're in your teen years and in your developing years, where you do kind of feel these fast connections with specific women because they have traits or they have interests or they have this personality that you're drawn to, maybe because it's something that you feel this connection, because like attracts like, or maybe it's because you see this person as someone that's aspirational, that you want to be in their orbit and you want to be around because you aspire to be them. You aspire to dress like them, talk like them, be able to make career moves like them, whatever the case may be. You want to be in their orbit because of that. As mentioned in the book Bad Friend, she's saying these friendships do reach a critical point where it's time for you to individuate and kind of set your own identity and your own individuality apart from that person. And in many instances, this usually breaks the friendship, as opposed to allowing for greater growth and connection, because sometimes, in some cases, friends can feel like you're leaving them behind, which will cause them to kind of rebel and to split apart. Or some friends feel like you are betraying them, you're changing, and what have you. And this can just create friction in the friendship due to like misunderstandings and not being able to properly flesh out like what's going on and have a good conversation because emotions are high and whatnot. And I definitely see this as something that happens and impacts a lot of friendships in like your teenage years and in your 20s. Yeah, that was this first little bit that I've read from Bad Friend has been very fascinating. I'm just learning so much about female friendships, and I'm having a fabulous time with these books. So I'm gonna keep reading, keep diving, keep thinking things, keep taking notes and writing, and I will hop back in and share more of what I'm learning, what I'm feeling, and more insights, and let you know what's going on more in these books later on. Okay, friends, I am here to give another update for Bad Friend. Let's not pay attention to the pimple cream. Let's just keep focused on the book because pimples happen, babes. So I am having a great time with Bad Friend by Tiffany Watt-Smith. It is a book I didn't know that I needed. I really am enjoying how this book is structured, as she is literally taking us through the complete timeline of what the typical female friendship looks like, the changes that come, the way that friendships kind of form, develop, what we know about female friendships historically based on sexism and misogyny, and how that creates a framework for how we think and we view about friendships even to this day and time. In the first part, in part one, she spent time exploring the different friendship dynamics that exist between women and what they mean for us. She went into, again, the history of friendship and what it looks like. She also went into kind of this idea about the bad friend, or the friend who can be a bad influence upon you due to them you being young and you being impressionable. And sometimes you can find yourself in these kind of like cliques or in these friendships where you are under this other person's influence because of your aspirational ideas of this person, because they represent what you want to be, and how you kind of envy them, and how these friendships create this very unstable power dynamic, and that can exist for a time. But usually what happens is either the person kind of like falls out of wanting to be your friend and they don't want to deal with you anymore because they just find that you're suffocating or oppressive to them, or they lose their idol status for you and you kind of see them for just a normal dynamic person, or you realize you don't really want to be like this person, and these friendships can kind of like split and you go your separate ways. She also explores workplace friendships and what they look like, how they play a role in our lives as we are kind of making moves in our career, and how throughout history we've gotten conflicting advice on workplace friendships, where in more of the 50s and during that time, it was frowned upon to be friends with other women in the workplace. A lot of that, again, being due to a lot of sexism, misogyny, and the way that women were represented, or women friendships within workspaces were represented and shown in media and culture, and how it was just frowned upon, and how that began to change, of course, with feminism, as the narratives about female friendships began to change, and how it is in modern day times where friendships are seen as a power move, where you can make friends with people at work and you can like level up, you can grow professionally, you can learn more things and whatnot, and you can have somebody who has your interest and who wants to see you grow and prosper professionally. But she also reveals the fact that even with those friendships, they can also sometimes be, I don't want to say abusive, but they can also sometimes not be the best, because people can take advantage of you in those situations in workplaces. They can take advantage of you and use friendships to get you to work more hours, to get you to pick up days or shifts that you maybe don't want to make you feel that you're indebted to them. And that can be a toxic thing to have within the workplace when it comes to like gossip and like kind of fights and competitiveness. It can be a bit of an issue. So she shares the pros and cons of that, and how navigating healthy workplace friendships should look like. And now we've shifted into part 2, where we are seeing what really happens when friendships break apart. So it's kind of like we've left the 20s and we've left young adulthood and the 20s and how those friendships roll in that era, to now this new kind of era and way of life where you're getting married, you're having children, you're settling down a bit more, you're moving to the suburbs, maybe you're even leveling up in your career for the next phase, and how this can sometimes impact friendships where you grow apart and you grow distant because you're going in separate directions, and neither one, while it's a hurtful thing, sometimes people just don't have the capacity, either the friend, either you, or both, to do what needs to be done to make these friendships work and flourish and thrive. And you have a natural event where you just grow apart and you go your separate ways. And she's also talking about the new friendships and relationships that form in the absence of these prior friendships. She's talking about neighborhood and community, how you can make friends within your neighborhood and within your community. And while these aren't always deep friendships or deep relationships, that they do support you in a different way, that even just having a basic conversation where you're just shooting the breeze with your neighbor and talking about general safe topics like the weather, or how does it work, or traffic, or just like changes within the neighborhood, these are crucial ways for us to remain socially active and engaged. And they can do a lot for a person, connecting with other people. They can do a lot for like stress management and making you feel appreciated, seen, and heard of. And also different community events and how they're important for you to develop and grow your network and to connect with people in your neighborhood and kind of create that social structure, that sociability that you need in this new phase. As again, a lot of your older friendships have kind of faded away. But she also speaks to this phenomenon where, as we know, we have the increasing loneliness epidemic, where a lot of times in our present day and time, because we have become so self-reliant and we've become like these really independent individuals, we've kind of created this structure where we don't really need community, and a lot of people don't utilize all the benefits of community and socializing within the community because we get everything delivered to us. We get everything that happens instantaneously. We have parasocial relationships now. We have our groceries delivered to our home now. We can have people to come and clean for us now. Like, we have everything literally at our fingertips. So what need is there to go and be part and fellowship with other people within your neighborhood, within your community, to accomplish a common goal, because we are all so independent and self-reliant, and how this has shifted a lot of neighborhoods, shifted a lot of communities because of this, where people, are more private with the private nuclear family and that dynamic, and how that's impacted, sociability and friendships within neighborhoods. And I thought that was fascinating, and I thought that was interesting. I also thought it was interesting how there were some sociologists that were putting the onus of this issue and the onus of this problem on women, because women were, now working out of the home. They weren't stay-at-home wives anymore. They weren't doing the PTA meetings and the bake-offs, that they were looking for places and spaces where they could be individuals, where they could rest, where they didn't have to continue running because they were the ones who were cooking, cleaning, and taking care of the children. And I found that to be wild. And she also talked about the other kind of friendships that kind of form in this period of your life regarding mom friendships. And she's sharing like her personal experiences with like her and challenges with developing mom friends, because she felt unsure and she felt like she wasn't capable of doing it because of her past experiences with her other friendships and how they kind of failed and didn't work for her. But she explored the necessity of these friendships and how they can help kind of with this aspect and this idea of it takes a village to raise a child, and how having these friendships have helped her and her friend that she developed a mom friendship with, when it came to helping each other out with taking care of their kids and participating in events and just being the other adult in the room when they are taking care of their children, so that there's some adult stimulation and helping to ease the stress and to ease how it can be a lonely path being a mom and how it's so crucial. She dives a little bit deeper into this aspect while she's mentioning the different ways throughout history that women have been that support system, and they've created these support systems for each other when it comes to kind of creating a community and a village around each other for mothers and supporting them. So that's kind of where I'm at right now in Bad Friend. It has been a very illuminating and enlightening read. I will hop back in when I make more progress and share my thoughts. Okay, friends, so I finished Bad Friend, how modern women, or how women revolutionize modern friendship. And it was such a fascinating read. I really did enjoy it. Things that really stand out to me when it comes to just the book itself is how it was so well structured and well paced. I really appreciated how she kind of culled the specific topics and the specific focus for each of the parts of the book to flow with the natural kind of timeline of a female friendship as she explored the different ways that we start making friendships as we transition out of our young adult and childhood friendships into our kind of like adult friendships, and also exploring the things that kind of separate us and what friendship looks like as we kind of continue this progression of life on into middle age and older age. Very fascinating, very illuminating. Really appreciated that. And I liked a lot of what she had to kind of say about female friendships, how they are now and how they used to be in past history. But overall, this was an amazing book, and it really did drive in on this whole topic and this whole idea of the complexities and the dynamics of friendship. She dove deep into that and excavated and explained everything. And when it comes to just the general idea or the takeaway that I come from reading this particular book, I think it is that we as women, we're given a bad rap when it comes to friendships. We're given this rap that we're overly emotional, that we're jealous, that we're competitive, that we're passive aggressive, all of these things, which can be true. But I think that so often and so many times we allow misogyny and sexism, and also the current culture within media dictate and tell us what female friendship actually is. When in reality and in practice, it's a lot more deep, it's a lot more complex, and it's a lot more nuanced than kind of what we see it as. This book was really good. I had a really good time with it, and it really did speak to the deeper kind of like ideas and kind of the questions that I was having when it came to understanding the complexities of friendship. And yeah, knocked it out of the park. Now I need to finish up Firefly Lane, and I also need to start the last book of this vlog, which is We Are Not Like Them by Joe Piazza and Christina Pride. When I get all that stuff figured out on the back end, I will hop in and let you know what's going on in each of those, with each of those books, and give you updates as needed. So I will see you back in a little bit.
There are stains on your photo, little cracks on your rusty frame, stuck in the mud, but it's okay. I don't have the pieces of your home, buried in the flashbacks. All these wicked nightmares have gone cold. Now we go way, way back, as far as way back goes. Still standing by your side. You know I'll be right here when all the monsters come. Oh, I've got you. You grew old in suburbia, where pretty demons never show, shifting shapes in millennia, but you're okay. I don't have the pieces of your home, buried in the flashbacks. All standing by your side. You know I'll be right here when all the monsters come. Oh, I've got you. I've got you. Now we go way, way back, as far as way back.
The tradition of me losing chunks of my footage continues. But I caught it this time before I started editing, or while I was editing. But anyways, so I have some footage of me reading this book. I lost all the footage of me talking about this book and sharing my thoughts. Unfortunately, that's gone. But I'm gonna give my final wrap up regarding this experience with this book and kind of how I feel it speaks to the theme of this video as we're talking about female friendship. So with We Are Not Like Them, I feel like this when it comes to female friendships in the form of interracial friendships between Black and white women, I think that this is something that speaks to a lot of the pain points that both women, Black and white, feel. A lot of it centers around this idea of racial exhaustion that is experienced by Black women, and also the racial exhaustion when it comes to white racial exhaustion that is experienced by white women when it comes to race. But outside of just race, there is also a lot about this friendship that again goes back to kind of the typical beats that female friendship goes through. We can see how Riley was feeling a little disjointed and curious as to what their friendship would look like due to Jen being married and her being pregnant and her life kind of moving forward in a different direction than what Riley is going in, and kind of the feelings that she was having about not being able to fit and have a space in Jen's life. And you could also see Jen kind of wondering and feeling a little isolated from Riley, who had spent a lot of time away from home, and she went to college and she got a degree. She's working in journalism, and Jen didn't. She went an alternate route, and she kind of feels stuck and behind and is questioning and wondering why she would even want to be friends with her and what she even has to offer this friendship. And she kind of feels a little bit out of pace in comparison to Riley. And then add into that the extra kind of like burden of the fact that Riley lent Jen money for her IVF cycle, and that led and contributed to her becoming pregnant. So that was a large lump sum. It was about $5,000. So add the fact that she had her best friend loaned her money that she at this point can't pay her back due to their financial struggles, due to their debt because of infertility and whatnot. And there's just a lot of stress on their friendship outside of the racial components and kind of like the racial discomfort or the racial lines that were drawn into their friendship. Circling back to the race component being in their friendship, a lot of it was due to miscommunication. A lot of it was due to lack of communication, and a lot of it was due to both, I feel, Riley and Jen being ostriches and sticking their head in the sand when it comes to race and when it comes to these discussions and when it comes to the elephant in the room that they're not the same person culturally, racially, ethnically, and whatnot, and there are going to be some differences And they shouldn't like act like that's not true. And then when a crisis or something comes up, act surprised when one person feels one kind of way or whatnot. Like these are things that should they have communicated clearly and effectively and had open discussions about race and not just been like, not let fear get the better of them, as we all do. They could have avoided a lot that kind of transpired between them during this time. But at the end of it all with this book, I do feel like we get a somewhat satisfactory conclusion when it comes to their friendship, when it comes to the events that take place in this novel, and when it comes to the characters themselves. Not completely satisfactory, but somewhat satisfactory, perhaps, possibly, very real conclusion. All right, so that's that. When it comes to my rating and my experience with this book personally, I loved it. It spoke to me. It felt very relevant. I felt a lot of what Riley had felt, a lot of what she was experiencing with her friendship with Jen is similar experiences and feelings that I've had in past friendships with other friends of mine. And it felt very relatable. It felt very relevant. A lot of what she went through and a lot of things that she touched on and a lot that we saw in her narrative. I appreciated her growth and her evolution over the story. I appreciated her kind of looking in within herself and kind of seeing ways that she wasn't the best friend to Jen because she never did kind of like correct her. She never did broach these conversations about race. And while a lot of what she was mentioning for why she didn't do that is valid, the onus of speaking about race, the responsibility of that shouldn't always be placed on the Black person. But again, I feel like there were some ways that she could have touched on these topics and touched on this subject and maybe got the ball rolling and opened the door so that Jen could kind of come in and take the lead in some instances. But her having the self-awareness to kind of note that was good. When it comes to Jen's character, I appreciated her character arc and her change and her evolution in this story. And again, when it comes to the conclusion for what really transpired in this friendship and how things ended between them, I'm not going to say that it was necessarily satisfactory. I do feel like maybe it could have been handled a little bit different, a little bit better, or we could have gotten a little bit more background or a little bit more context to what really was going to happen between these two and if they really were going to make it, because I felt like the conclusion, it ended the rift, so to speak, and they were able to reach a point where they could talk freely and kind of get everything out. And Riley was able to kind of call out Jen, and Jen was calling out Riley, and they had that epic moment. And the conclusion, it kind of sees them like working to rebuild, but I would wager to guess or wonder if their friendship actually did make it because of the way that things kind of wrapped up. But I do think that this was a very good book. I gave it 5 fabulous stars. I liked it. I felt like it was a conversation starter. It's not a comprehensive thing. It's not perfect, but I enjoyed the exploration of this friendship. I enjoyed the discussion about race. I enjoyed a lot of this, and I really had a good time with it. And feel like it's an important read. Objectively, I do feel like there could have been more explored in this friendship. There were a lot of moving pieces going on outside of just this friendship. This book isn't specifically only about friendship. It's kind of like a part, while it's probably the main conflict, there's other pieces that are happening within both Jen and with Riley as individuals that we're also exploring in this story. So I would have liked to seen more context regarding their friendship and regarding this rift and regarding seeing them do some actionable things to kind of like unpack and have like necessary discussions that needed to be had. I think that we took it at 2 beats too long for them to reach that pivotal climax where they had that come to Jesus discussion. And even after that, it still felt like it felt a little stilted. It didn't feel like there was really truly, again, a satisfactory conclusion. When it comes to each of their individual character arcs, I do feel like many people will not receive them very well. Specifically Jen. I don't think that her kind of like eventual character arc and change is going to be perceived or accepted well or taken as satisfactory, because I feel like this question at the end, like, did she truly learn anything? Is she truly like digesting this information and processing it and learning how to do better? Or is it still kind of performative? And when it comes to Riley, is she willing to kind of like allow space and grace and be patient and really work to make this friendship work and be honest and start these uncomfortable and awkward discussions about race with Jen so that their friendship can like grow and evolve and become better, and where there is this space where they can allow each other to have these uncomfortable conversations and be progressive and move forward. And we just don't really get to see that. We don't really get to unpack that. We don't really get to see them using any tools or creating any foundation for them to be able to accomplish that. So I would say that objectively, I would give this a 3. I think that this could be a good book for book clubs to, again, be a kickstarter to a discussion about a lot of these issues and a lot of the themes that are brought to the surface in this book and that are explored. Okay, my memory card is full. I'm back. But I think that this would be a great book for Black and white friends to maybe read together and start these conversations between each other, and to do the work of learning and unpacking how to talk about race, how to practice radical listening and decentering yourself, decentering your ego, and learning to, be a better ally, learning how to start these conversations, and being progressive and moving forward and having like and reaching a different level in your friendship, and just giving a little bit more depth. So I think that that's what this book is good for. Yeah, that's for this one. And that wraps up my feelings about this book. All right, friends, it is finally time for us to wrap up this video. I had so much fun with it. It was quite interesting, quite fascinating. So let's break everything down when it comes to our exploration through female friendship, through literature. Definitely learned a lot. I think that overall, the thing that has stuck with me the most and that I can say that I learned from this video and from these books is the importance of communication in friendships, the importance of kind of knowing what you want to get out of a friendship, if it's just something that you want to make it more of an acquaintanceship, if it's a friend that fits a specific need or fills a specific area in your life, if this is going to be more of a professional friendship, just whatever, being clear on your expectations and what you're seeking out of the friendship and communicating always. And also how when you're in a friendship, it's going to take work. It is a relationship, so it's not going to always be effortless. It's not going to always be perfect. There are going to be difficulties and things that you go through and that you're going to have to discuss. You're not always going to agree, so you're going to need to navigate kind of like conflict and find ways to resolve them in a healthy, productive way. And also being able to be mindful and understand that you're not always going to be able to mitigate these conflicts and mitigate these changes. People do grow, and it's very real that you can grow apart, or a person can transition out of your life where maybe you only needed each other for a season, and to not cling to these friendships, but to just allow them to let them go. And sometimes they can come back to you and you can revisit it in the future and just pick up where you left off on. But kind of having this flexibility and this openness and this willingness to learn and to, you know, just try to have healthy friendships and navigate yourself away from toxic friendships and do your best to just, I don't know, try to be a good friend, try to be a good person, and try to be thoughtful and, you know, love one another and build community. So that's kind of what I learned from this. Let's break it down from the different books that we read in order that I finished them. So first, we're going to talk about Bad Friend by Tiffany Watt-Smith. I enjoyed this book. I feel like she had so much to say about the different types of friendships, which I thought was revelatory. And she also really dug into some of these misconceptions that we have about female friendships being catty and petty. She took you through the average lifespan of what female friendships looked like from the time of their conception when we're kind of in our young adult, preteen to young adult stage, as we transition into college, and where we begin to kind of change in friendships as our needs change and we become more firm in our identity and we begin to build families and get married and start dating. And this time where friendships either just don't last or they're facing a lot of conflict and maybe they transition away into developing and creating other friendships in their time and in this life as they navigate motherhood and being married and being career women. And also, these friendships undergo another transition and another change as we approach middle age. Things look a little bit different. What we want from our friendships is a little bit different. What we need, the support, also what it looks like navigating friendship when you're a woman who has children versus when you're a woman who doesn't have children. She really discussed and talked about a lot of different things and showed a lot of different phases and types of friendships. So I do believe I landed on a 3.5 stars overall for that book. Next, we have Kristin Hannah by, we have Firefly Lane by Kristin Hannah. Geez. So we have this novel which explores this decades-long friendship over a span of time, and we see them through different eras and as they are navigating adulthood, young adulthood, and middle age together. And however, I can see this being a really good book for many women. With my objective review, I see this being a really good book for many women. I see that this is probably the typical average friendship that many women have, with many of the pain points and the conflicts and the friction that many women experience in their friendships. And it is a very emotional book. Kristin Hannah is very good at writing very crafty, relatable, and relevant pain points that speak to many women. And she was able to just kind of hit all the typical beats in this book. So this would be perfect for someone who is maybe a new reader and doesn't mind a bit of a long book, or someone who is perhaps new to women's fiction or wants historical fiction that maybe isn't kind of set in maybe the 1800s or like the early 1900s, but it's kind of more relevant in this kind of time period that we're in. You can kind of get and understand a lot of the things that she's referencing and a lot of the historical events she's talking about, which wasn't really a lot and it didn't really have any impact on the story at all, but just in case. So this would be a good book for that type of person. And I did give my objective review 3 stars. The final book that we read was We Are Not Like Them by Kristin Pride and Joe Piazza. This book is exploring this interracial friendship between Riley and Jen, as they are kind of put against opposing sides when Jen's husband, who is a white cop, ends up shooting a black teenage boy. And it creates friction in their friendship, and so they're beginning to question everything about the friendship and what they know about each other, and struggling to figure out if there's any way for them to move forward. However, with that being said, I can totally get that this book is not going to be everyone's cup of tea, that there will be some things in this story that people don't agree with, that there is particular character arcs that some might find to be a bit questionable and a bit like happening very tritely, and that there needs to be more time to explore a lot of these different dynamics and to explore the different processes and the different things that both Jen and Riley did doing their friendship to reach maybe a better conclusion to the story. I also feel like there are going to be some things in the story and choices that were made by both Jen and Riley that people will disagree with. Some people may also say that this friendship was very superficial, not the friendship itself, but that this book comes across as very superficial, as it doesn't really provide any real depth into a lot of these issues that were being brought up, where you could actually see on the page them working through these things and having real discussions about them. So I could totally see that being a bone that many people would pick with this one. So I don't think that this is going to be a book that's going to be for everyone. So I landed on, for my just overall objective review, 3 stars for this one. I had such a fabulous time with this blog. This was so fun. I feel like I learned so much about female friendships. And I hope you did too. And I hope that you maybe pick up one of these books, give them a go, and that you're able to explore the dynamics of female friendships and learn a little something too. And until next time, guys, make sure that you like, comment, and subscribe, and that you ring the bell so that you're notified of all of my upcoming videos. And if you want to join my newsletter, make sure that you make sure that you go to the description box and click on the link to subscribe to my newsletter, as I share a lot more content and information about different books that I'm reading, about fun like bookish tips and reading tips or not. So if you're interested in that and just getting a little bit more content from me, definitely consider my newsletter. And lastly, if you want to join my book club, which is the Empower Lit Book Club, where we dive into different diverse books and we platform BIPOC and marginalized authors, books, and stories, and we give them a very fun, critical look at them as we dive deep into the topics that we find in these books. If that's something that you want to do and you want a book to read this October, since we are reading The Possession of Obadiah by Isabel Cañas, who is one of my favorite authors, I will have that in the description box as well, where you can get some more information on it and join if you so wish. But until next time, my friends, I will see you in the next video. Bye.